Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and on this show, ambitious women learn how to create a life they're obsessed with, without the hustle, without the grind, without torturing ourselves, and without following anybody else's rules. This podcast is all about creating our own rules, owning our identity as creator, and hitting every single goal we set for ourselves. Together, we're redefining success on our terms and building lives that look as good as they feel. Let's dive in. So I'm playing around with a couple of new things, and I got the nudge this morning to tell you guys what's going on and to actually walk you through my entire process of launching something new. Because there's a couple things happening here. First and foremost, I was really thinking about getting creative with content. Like, content creation is by far my favorite thing to do, but it also can feel really overwhelming when you're creating a podcast and then you're creating for YouTube and then you're creating short form content and then you're creating written content. So I'm constantly asking myself, like, how can this be easier? How can this be easier? How can this be easier? And the idea was, instead of recording a bunch of 90-second, clips, but instead to like sit down and actually record 4, 5 to 8 minutes, clip that up, use that for short form content, and then send people to, YouTube or the podcast to listen to the entire video. So I'm really testing that right now. And again, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because there are so many rules in business, right? Or we've been told that there's so many rules and there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And we observe other people and then we feel compelled to do it the way that they're doing it, even if we don't want to do it that way, or that way doesn't resonate with us, or that way isn't convenient or doesn't work well for us. And so for me, I'm like, I have plenty of things to say. I could record short form video content all day long. But again, if I could create these longer pieces of content, it just allows me to flow through my day a little bit easier and makes it a little bit better. There's also better tools to create and clip and stuff at this level than, having to edit short form video. So again, I'm sharing that with you because this is not something I've really seen done, but this is just an idea that I have, and I'm following that idea because my guess is if you're listening to this right now, you have a lot of ideas as well, right? There's a lot of different ways you want to try things and do things, but you don't want to do them, or you won't try them because you don't see anybody else doing it, or because it doesn't make sense, or you don't have any proof that it's going to work, or you don't have any proof that it's going to be successful. But my thought process is, if you have an idea and it's a good idea and like you can feel it in your body that, ooh, we should test this, to follow that idea, because it means you're probably on the right path. But what we have been taught to do is to second guess ourselves our entire lives. And I see this very specifically in women, right? Like, we have been taught to not trust ourselves at all and to, again, model what is going on in the outside world. And so what other people are doing is what I should be doing. But again, your heart, your soul, your mind, whatever, is calling you in a very different direction. And I have been called in that same direction. I believe that I've been being called in that direction since basically 2017, really stepped into entrepreneurship in 2019, and then really stepped into the more transformational coaching space in 2021. So I've constantly been answering the call and answering the call and answering the call and doing things differently and doing things differently. And so when I decided to launch this iteration of my brand, which was actually in December of 2024, believe it or not, it feels like it's been forever. The whole program was the Uncensored Self. And it was definitely like a download that came in. The Uncensored brand is actually what I named my business. Uncensored Consulting was my original LLC, which I think I filed in 2018. And I had several programs, the Uncensored Sales Program, the Uncensored Sales Accelerator. I did a lot of fun things under this particular brand, and then went through a lot of other wild stuff. And then it came through, it was right before Thanksgiving of last year, where it was like the Uncensored brand is where it all started. And where it all started was this idea of living life outside the lines, right? Not being stuck in the box that we were put in. And while I had that thought and I knew that was my path, back in 2017, I really didn't start following that path in a really aligned way until 2024. And I share this with you because you are probably being called. Like, I honestly don't think that you and I would be here. You would not be listening to this if you have not been being called for quite some time to do things differently, to look at things differently, that you are not like other people. Like, the thought I remember thinking back in 2017 was, this can't be it. This cannot be all that God put me on this planet to do. And at the time, I was the director of sales for a multi-million-dollar marketing agency. I had the corner office. I just had a baby. Like, life was really fucking good. And the thought was still like, this can't be it. There has to be more. I've always been called to more. But when I was called to more, I felt guilty. I felt bad. I felt like, what is wrong with me? Why can I not just be happy with what I have? Again, on paper, my life is fucking amazing. Life is good. I have a 6-figure salary. At the time, I was happily married. At the time, again, I had a baby. I just built a house that I was obsessed with. Like there was so much good in my life, but my soul, my spirit was like, but there's more, but there's more, but there's more. And I have been exploring that more and more and more. And I really feel like, the tipping point happened last year when the uncensored self came through, of this idea of like, who are you when you're not being who the world taught you to be? And I'm giving you all of this because the thoughts that are coming through right now is this business therapy idea. And it was actually my friend and client, Courtney Benson. I interviewed her on the podcast before. We're connected on social media. She's amazing. She wrote a book for real estate agents, Manifestation for Real Estate Agents. It's a journal. It's fucking incredible. But Courtney used to tell people that I was her business therapist. And I was like, well, that's really interesting, right? Like, what does that mean, right? But the way she was, she's like, well, I mean, like we talk about business, but most of the time the business problems aren't the business problems. And that's what I see over and over again, that the business or your career or whatever it is the symptom of something underlying. And for most of us, what I see again is an identity problem. And I don't even like the word problem, right? That there's a misalignment in identity, meaning that you are not acting in a way that is aligned with the highest version of you, right? Maybe you're staying in an industry that you don't desire to stay in. Maybe you're, again, acting out of alignment in some way, but you're not wearing an identity that is yours, right? Like you are operating in the world through the identity that was given to you or that you think is required of you to be successful in your industry. So I think that's the first thing that we really need to pull apart. Or that's a symptom of business problems, right? I think another is worthiness, our not enough story. Like the number of women who I've talked to who have told me that they hit massive goals, like really big or really incredible goals that you would think they'd be so fucking excited about. And they're not. They feel like shit. They feel, like one woman was telling me she hit a goal and she cried on her way home because she was like, how am I ever going to do that again? She was so unhappy and so miserable, and it still didn't feel like enough. And I call that a worthiness issue, a not enough issue, right? There's this idea that I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't deserve this, right? There's a lot of different words. Who am I to do this? What if people find out I don't know what I'm doing? I think imposter syndrome falls under this umbrella for a lot of people, but that wreaks a lot of havoc in business as well, right? So you're operating from the wrong identity, and then you have this worthiness story, and then we add fucking money on top of that, right? And money is just such an emotionally charged topic because most of us were taught very untrue things about money, right? Like we were taught that money was hard to make. We were taught that money was scarce. We were taught that if I make money, that person doesn't. We were taught that we had to work hard for money. We had to suffer for money. We had to sacrifice for money. We were taught that rich people are bad. And still today, you can scroll through social media and see people vilifying billionaires everywhere. So it's so confusing. You're like, well, I think I want to make a fuck ton of money, but nobody really seems to like these rich people. And so there's all this shit that comes up with money. And it's really hard to build a thriving business when you have a fucked up relationship with money. Ask me how I know, right? So when we look at those three things, and then there's the final one that I'm going to put on here is just this true ownership of being the creator of your reality, right? Like, so if I had to say there are four very clear things that most business problems stem from. It's identity, right? Meaning that you are operating outside of who you truly are. You're operating from the shoulds and the have tos, and this is what the industry looks like, and this is what I've been told that I have to do in order to be successful. So that's step one. The second thing that we see is, again, our worthiness story, our not enough story, and then we have our money stories. And then ultimately we have these rules about business, right? That we have been taught that there are rules. There is a certain way to do things. And if you just follow these certain steps or you just follow this blueprint, then you will be successful. And so we were taught that. And so then we try to operate within those rules. And again, I believe you're here and I believe you're listening to this for a reason. Like those rules were not made for us. We were not meant to follow other people's rules. We were meant to create our own. We were meant to create our own path. We were meant to do things the way that we want to do things, not the way that some dude in a fucking industry told us that we should, right? Like when we look around at who's, really being championed for being really successful at business, it's men. And quite frankly, it's very different doing business as a woman than it is as a man, right? And I hate to say this, and people are going to come for me with this one, but most of the men who are teaching about business, they have a wife at home. They have somebody at home taking care of their shit. And I'm not saying that you and I shouldn't have people taking care of our shit. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have people cleaning our houses or helping with our kids or whatever the case may be. But there's all these men that are like, well, just run your business this way. But they don't think the way we think. They don't have the responsibilities that we have. They don't have to run their lives the way that we run our lives, because we are not just business people, right? We are also moms, wives, girlfriends, partners, sisters, caretakers of aging parents, the primary parent at school, whatever we are, right? Like we wear so many identities, and I'm not saying that men don't, but generally speaking, a lot of that we own as women. So it's very hard to follow some dude's blueprint to grow a successful business. And that's why you feel so out of alignment. That's why business feels so clunky. And so this whole business therapy idea and what came through this morning was like, this is kind of the next evolution of the uncensored self. The uncensored self is the deep work. It's the one-on-one work. It's the work I'm doing with my clients right now. But what really I think a lot of you need, want, and desire right now is this business therapy. How do I get off of the ride that is business today? How do I get off of the shoulds and the have to's and the do it this ways and the boring ass shit that looks like everybody else's and I hate doing, but I don't know how else to do this? How do I give myself permission to put this thing down and pick this thing up? How do I give myself permission to set big ass, crazy ass goals? How do I give myself permission to be all of me? How do I give myself permission to stop doing things in a way that used to work for me in the past because it's not aligned anymore? Because that shit is hard, right? And I don't even like the word hard, but that shit is hard. When you say, hey, this one way used to work for me for a really long time and I don't want to do it anyway, the courage that it takes to be able to do that is unbelievable. And that's what the challenge that I found in most business coaching. I don't want to throw shade, but I'm going to throw a little bit of shade that like most business coaching is the how to a business. And you can learn the how to a business in a fucking book or in a YouTube video, right? Like you want to figure out how to read a P&L, go Google it, right? You want to learn how to sell, go read a book. You want to learn how to build an audience, go read a book or watch people's YouTube videos or watch people's free webinars, right? They're telling you that there's all these things behind a paywall that are not things that you cannot find elsewhere. So unless somebody is actually hands-on in your business, hiring a business coach to teach you business, in my opinion, is a waste of money. If that person is walking side by side and it's one-on-one and they're more of a consultant and they're working in the business with you and they're helping you set up your marketing systems and your operating systems and hiring and things like that, like game on. But if it's just somebody telling you what to do, that is a waste of fucking money. There's too much free information on the internet for you to be paying somebody to tell you how to operate a business. But what they don't tell you and what is really hard to learn in a book is how do I handle the emotional side of running a business? Because when we choose business, whether it's real estate, mortgage, entrepreneurship, tech, even those of you that are executives, right? Or directors or leading, like when we choose that path, every insecurity we've ever had our entire fucking life comes up. Every single fucking one of them. And every time we were told we weren't good enough or we couldn't achieve something or who we were wasn't right or we were too much or we were too loud or we were too intimidating or our goals were too big or that was unrealistic, right? Like every single time that happened in your life, it comes up. It comes up when you choose to take the giant courageous risk of being a woman in business. When you take giant courageous moves towards becoming the best version of yourself, that's the work, right? That is the work. Learning to run a business, the technical how-to of business is easy. Managing your emotions and your stories and your programs and your fears and your bullshit around money and marketing and visibility and am I good enough and are these people going to find out that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing? That is the hard part of running a business. And so that's where this business therapy idea comes from, is how do we shift from doing business in this old paradigm, this force, this effort, this looking like everybody else and doing what everybody else is doing in blueprint driven business to stepping into really aligned business, attraction business, right? How do we learn to actually use the laws of the universe and things like the law of attraction and the law of vibration, the law of cause and effect, all of these beautiful laws of the universe to create really aligned businesses? Because the truth of the matter is we were never supposed to work this hard. This wasn't what it was supposed to look like. You didn't come to this space-time reality to struggle and to suffer and to effort your way into business. And I know you know that because you're listening to this right now. If you were okay with the effort, you wouldn't be here. And I know I speak that from so much truth because I went through the I got to fix my business phase of this journey where I dumped thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into business coaching because I thought I had a business problem. But actually it turns out I'm really fucking good at business. I had a whole host of identity problems, money stories, insecurities, and all these other things that I wasn't addressing, which is why dumping money into business coaching and business coaching and business coaching never got me a return, right? And so what I really want to do in this business therapy space is truly break up with the rules and the how-tos and the shoulds and the have-tos and really fucking own your power as the creator of your reality and building a business that feels fucking amazing, building a business that you love, building a business that is aligned and that is fun and that it helps people and it makes magnificent impact. But on top of all of that, we're not just building businesses, we're building lives. We're becoming the women that we were meant to become. We get to step into this softness, into this receiving, into this amazing energy of just being, right? Just being, because who you are when you just be who you are at your core is magnetic as fuck, and it's powerful and it's amazing. And so I want to walk you through this business therapy journey. It's not all the way cooked. It's not all the way done. I told you all when I pushed record today that I was really going to walk you through my process. But if this resonates with you, if you are like, yes, I want off the ride, I want out of this masculine, broy, alpha, grind, hard motherfucking work, but I still want to make a shit ton of money, and I still want to make an impact, and I still want to do good work in the world, but I want to be soft. I want to be kind. I want to move slow. I want to attract. I want to love the work that I'm doing. I want to be present. I want to be present with my family. I want to be present with my clients. I want to move through the world in this really easy, flowy way. Then let me know if you want to learn more about business therapy. Thank you for tuning in to the Uncensored Self Podcast. If you're walking away with a new perspective, some fresh inspiration, or the push you needed to show up as your uncensored self, I'd love to hear about it. Share this episode, leave a review, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, success isn't about following somebody else's rules. It's about owning who you are, deciding what you want, and going after it unapologetically. Until next time, keep leading, keep creating, and stay uncensored.